Hello, everybody. I bet you all know who I am. Dusty! I am Dusty Cat, and this is the panel for this AK Yearling. Actually, Berrow. So, I am the emergency moderator, so I have absolutely nothing prepared.
I didn't know that I was going to be sitting up here by myself.
Yes.
I'm kind of shy.
Kind of shy, so I'm here for moral support.
So, yeah. Anyways, I thought we could kind of do just like a Q&A thing, and I also have a couple of announcements that are really exciting, and I have some prizes.
Prizes?
If you know some trivia, if you've read the book.
Trivia?
So if you've read the book, so, I don't know, we could just get started with audience questions.
Well, why don't we do this? Because I've had you on my show.
Right.
I do have some prepared statements or questions that I've asked you before. Some of these people might not have seen that interview.
Okay.
So why don't we start with about 10 minutes of interview, and then we'll get some people in the crowd to ask you questions.
Okay, that sounds great.
Now, we know that a bit about you, some things have come out, like you used to work on a really popular TV show. Tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, well, I sort of came into the world of television and books through a popular TV show called Law & Order. And Law & Order SVU. And I worked on those shows for many years. And a show called The Good Wife. And I don't know if anyone knows about British television, but I worked on a show called Blue Peter. It's a children's TV show. It's the longest running kids TV show in the world, longer than Sesame Street. It's great. So I've worked on all those shows in live television, and I always wanted to be a writer for television. So I was working in production and started writing some spec scripts, which is what you write when you want to be a television writer. So you basically take an episode, or you take a show that's popular, that's on the air, kind of like the type of thing you would want to write. So if you wanted to, for example, write for My Little Pony, you wouldn't write My Little Pony, you'd write something similar. You'd write A Littlest Pet Shop. So the way that agents can tell if you can adopt a character and write for them like it's really the show is they have you write these samples. And so I started writing for a spec script of a TV show called Glee. And I thought it was in tune with my sensibilities of kind of like happy, fun, silly stuff. And it was really popular at the time. So I was writing that, and my roommate who worked in publishing said that at work, they had acquired some Glee books for teens, and I said, that's really stupid, because Glee is about singing, and those are books. And she was like, oh, well, do you want to try it out for it? And I was like, oh yeah, I do. Yeah, of course. So I wrote a little sample, and I, didn't really know what I was doing, but they always say, like, fake it till you make it. So I kind of just pretended like I knew what I was doing, and it turned into reality. And they chose me, and I worked on that book series for a while. And it sort of led to job after job after job, ghostwriting books that did not have my name on it, which was kind of safe because I didn't have to like own up to it if no one liked it. But sometimes people liked it, and I was like, I wrote that, but I can't say it. So it was kind of great learning experience for that.
Take it until you make it.
Yeah.
So, now that you transformed TV to writing, okay, tell us a bit about the kind of books that you like to read when you read.
Well, I love to read everything. I was very much Twilight Sparkle, kind of give me everything. But when I was a kid, I read a lot of Roald Dahl, Beverly Cleary, all that stuff. It wasn't as much for kids and teens back then. It's like a huge category in the bookstore now, but back then I read everything. My dad read me Lord of the Rings, and I read Harry Potter probably over and over and over and over when that came out. And let's see, what else is there? Everything pretty much. This is like a terrible answer.
Now you actually work a little bit old school. You confided in me that you actually write out all of your books longhand on legal paper before actually using a computer. Tell us a bit about that process.
I actually find that computers can be very distracting in terms of you can just click open a window, get distracted, and then 3 hours later you're like, what was it? I was working. Oh no. Especially if you're going to look at something for research purposes. Oh, I'm researching, and then you get down this black hole of, oh, and now I have nothing. Also, I think it can be a little intimidating to see a blank page with a cursor flashing at you, and I don't know, something about it is very sterile. So I started writing by hand because I found that I knew there was going to be a round of editing when I typed it up, so I didn't feel intimidated by writing. So I would just write whatever came to me, and then when I knew it could be like awful, and when I typed it up, it would already go through round 1 of editing. So it just kind of became this thing I do, and it's great because the coffee shop I go to has like rules about which table you can sit at if you have a laptop, so I always get a table. And it's just kind of cool to just have your brain and a piece of paper, and that's it. So that's what I do. And I actually have, I'm going to put in the charity auction, I have a 1 page I ripped from my Rainbow Dash book, Legal Pad. That's my original horrible rough draft of that page. So I'm going to give that with a Rainbow Dash book.
And what's the surprise of that page that you let me know?
Oh, you can see that I wrote the name Bon Bon instead of Squeezy Drops, which was changed in editing.
Dang that eagle. So now that you've wrote all 6 of the main 6 books. Well, actually, the last one's coming out. Which one's the last one?
Fluttershy is coming out in January.
January.
Well, because the Daring Do set.
Ah, the Daring Do
coming
set.
out.
How many people have pre-ordered the Daring Do set?
Woo!
Oh yeah!
That's good.
That's awesome because it is huge. So you wrote now the Daring Do books are longer and bigger than the main 6 books, correct?
Yeah.
So how many legal pads did you go through?
Well, what's funny is it stopped being just legal pads and kind of any notebook I had, so it's sort of patchy. It's in all, it's all different notebooks. I've said this before, I have these pony notebooks my mom bought me, and they have like Rainbow Dash and Twilight Sparkle on the cover, and I just write in those.
I want you all want one of those?
Yeah, they're really cool. It's funny because what ends up happening wherever I am, I'll be at a coffee shop and I'll take out my pony notebook and someone like the barista will be like, oh, you like My Little Pony? And I go, you have no idea.
So now that we're at Daring, what are these little things that your publishers allow you to say?
Well, I really wanted her to let me read the summaries of the books, but she said no.
No.
But I can tell you that there are volcanoes and poison clouds and missing relics and new characters and...
The new evil characters?
A couple new evil characters. Yeah, a couple, well, 1 returning evil character. But he's not in all of the stories.
He's not all of the stories.
And these stories, they are not the stories you've heard about. They take place in what is the middle of the Daring Do series. So they'll reference the books you've heard about, and they'll just kind of be in the middle. So I think people will be able to follow what's going on, and it'll be something totally fresh from what you've heard of. So
that's an interesting concept in writing a book, where you have canon books that are in the cartoon, that things have happened, and now you have to write the 3 in the center. Tell me about that process that you had to like stay within canon to come up with something.
it was a challenge at times, but I think I got it pretty good worked out. I kind of just had to basically make a master list of everything in existence that has happened in reference to that, and try to make it into a timeline because some of the stuff is kind of just randomly mentioned with it wasn't they weren't trying to make it fit anyway.
Right.
So it was kind of confusing.
So it was all up to you to make it.
Yeah, it's like a gigantic puzzle. But
well, with the success of the pre-order of the Dairy Deer series, is there going to be?
I hope so. I think so. But I can't say that.
Can't officially say anything.
But the ones that are coming out are in a cool treasure chest. There's a mini gold Daring Do with it. The box alone is really cool.
Anybody seen the box
And
online? That thing is awesome. Does anybody else remember any book publisher doing that kind of thing for a release? I mean, that thing is awesome.
It's like this big. It's like looks like a treasure chest. It's wonderful. And there's original cover art for all the books, which I know is a big thing for a lot of fans that they wanted to see, and they do look like in the show, accurate to the story.
So who did the art for the cover?
His name is Franco Spagnolo, if I'm saying that right. I don't know if I am. He seems to have cool stuff. If you want to check him out online, he's on Twitter.
And I know that Andy Price is a huge Dairy Deer fan.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I think we were trying to get him to do the covers, but something didn't line up with the schedules.
Yeah, so busy doing it.
Yeah, but I think they turned out well, anyways. And there's some art inside too. Not a lot, but there is some. So that's cool.
So we're about 15 minutes in. Why don't we take a couple of questions out there? Anybody got a hand up? How would we start over here?
You're saying that she was different from that?
Even though it seems to be the same, even though it's like, I don't know, there's something I really liked about her in the show, in the book, and how her relationship with Rarity, I really don't think she even thought of herself as Rarity's sister, I think, which I thought was kind of interesting. So what was maybe the thought process behind writing her?
Oh, okay. Well, I thought about Rarity, which in her name is Rarity, which means it's rare and special. So I thought, what would be the one thing to kind of annoy Rarity is someone who is exactly like her. And so that's where the idea came from, to have this intern where she's sort of torn between the idea of being someone's idol and also from that person or pony copying her. And like that pull, because she's very conflicted about it, and that's what's so funny about the whole situation is she doesn't know whether or not to like love this #1 fan of hers, and she's very in love with the idea of being this teacher, this mentor, but she also is kind of like, hey, she's copying me, and I'm annoyed because I'm Rarity and I'm me and I'm me, so.
Did you, was that the year, like, did you have any thoughts about, because she also has certain tomboyish things like big trash girls, that's what after all Jack or Apple Decking.
Yeah.
Did you have any ideas for that? Like, did you want her to be a bit of a tomboy?
No, I was just trying to think of stuff that Rarity wouldn't do, but she was holding back because she wanted to be like Rarity. So it was that she really did want to do that stuff, and she was her own self, and she was trying too hard to fit into this mold, like the person she looked up to, kind of like Daring Do and Rainbow Dash.
What are your thoughts on how they handled AK Yearling in the television show, the episode Daring Do?
When I found out about that, idea, I was like kind of taken aback by the whole thing because I was trying to well, for me, I was already working out the Daring Do books, so I was kind of, it was another layer of complication to everything, so I was a little bit confused. But I ended up really liking it. I thought it was so funny to me as an author to see this author pony on the screen and her kind of, you know, with her 2 keys on the typewriter. I laughed about that for a while. And, you know, just kind of the, leave me alone, it's my process and all that stuff. I mean, that's not a direct quote, obviously, that's not the process. But I thought it was really funny and kind of cool. And the same type of, it addressed the same type of like hero, fandom sort of thing.
Savory.
Oh my gosh! So, you really did it!
Everybody's fan favorite Saber Spark right here. Give me a hand.
I put a joke on Twitter about having pizza at the panel, and he said he was going to bring pizza, and I was like laughing. No, he's not. So we, oh my god, I'll pay you back. Okay.
It's like 2 hours cold, so. Help yourself.
You guys take a picture of you with the pizza? Really brought a pizza.
Gentlemen, a great shirt, guys.
When you were writing the Daring Do books, did you essentially use your own style or one that you created specifically for the 8 Yearling characters?
I think it's hard not to use partially my own style when writing a book, but I did try to make it sound a little more like the, you know, the text you hear in the show. So I definitely laid it on a little bit more thick with the, you know, she's crawling through the jungle and this and that, and there was smoke rolling in. You know, I did make it a little more fancy than I normally would. Okay.
Let's go you. Yes, you.
What is your writing process like? Do you have any like daily rituals? Do you have a word count that you go for every day? And is there anything you eat when you write, or specific time you write? Like,
I need to write right now. No. I try to have rituals. It's kind of hard because my schedule's unstructured, and it's hard, but it's awesome. I mean, I try to get up, I make coffee, I try to get some writing in. I find if I can peel myself out of bed earlier in the day, I actually get a lot more done when I feel like I've done something for the day, you know. Some days I'll sit there and literally look at it and write 2 sentences and then be like, I'm the worst. And then I don't write anything at all that day. But the creative process is not linear, so some days I write 20 pages or, you know, it's very different every day. But I do have a lot of really, really fast deadlines that I have to achieve, so it's kind of random, honestly. And as for eating things, I really like pistachios and pizza. Cold.
Great. Yes.
Do you carry around the note? How is the process of getting ideas happen with you? Do you have story ideas whizzing through your head and you have to jot them down, or do you sometimes just get one and you have to put it in a notebook? How often do you get these ideas?
All the time, I get ideas. If I don't have my notepad, when I don't have my notepad, but if I don't, I will type something up in my phone, in the note section. One of the books I ghosted from a couple of years ago, I wrote a whole chapter on my phone, like this, on the subway, and I couldn't believe it, but got really good at it. But I do actually, if anything occurs to me, I immediately write it down, because if you don't, it's going to go away. And I don't know, do you like to write? Do you do the same thing? Yeah. See, you're going to forget it. So, I mean, I write down tons of stuff that has made it into later books, like a year later, you know? Just funny things that I think maybe like Pinkie Pie would say, or just a line. Just write it down. Don't forget it.
The greatest thing is that everybody's carrying around one of these, right?
Mm-hmm.
It records things. All I have to do is go, comic idea, blah, 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 comic idea, done.
Well, yeah, for a while I was laughing about this because I was using an app called Dragon Dictation, and I was like, it's like taking down. It's like, take a letter.
What was the process in determining cadence's origin?
Oh, well, I knew, see, the first book is kind of interesting. It's a little different than the other ones because I was kind of getting into it. And Hasbro show people and everyone was kind of getting used to me as being in the universe. So I know, well, they said that they wanted me to put Cadence's story in the book. And we talked about it back and forth for a while, and that story is what we had agreed upon together. Basically Megan and me, but through other people. I didn't know her yet, so we kind of back and forth said, what about this, what about this? And that's what it ended up as. Yeah.
Thank you. What kind of things bring you inspiration? Like, is there certain types of music or art or television or other writers?
Yeah, I mean, definitely other writers. In terms of books, I mean, I just go to Barnes & Noble and I get inspired by looking through and reading the backs of books, and then I want to go home and write. So whenever I'm feeling stuck, that's actually what I do. And I mean, just any show that's just really amazing, or people that are good at their jobs, makes you want to totally kick butt, you know? Even like the show writers on Pony, when I get to read all the scripts, so whenever I read them, I'm just like, oh, I have to step this up. I gotta be like them. So, and actually now I think it's a good time to say that I wrote an episode for season 5. All I can say is that it's a Pinkie Pie episode, which I was.
Next question. Someone way in the back. How about you in the black shirt way back there? I have a staff
I got here a little late, so I just wanted to ask, how did you get into writing, and how did you get writing for Hasbro?
Okay, well, I'll give you short movements because I kind of went over it, but I had been a ghostwriter for a while for other books, and a couple of years actually, about 3 years, and my editor from another series I did called me and said, do you like My Little Pony? And I was like, yes, I love My Little Pony. Because I loved it when I was a kid. Obsessed. No joke. Obsessed. Had probably 40 ponies. Sleeping bag of the ponies. You know, my parents always used to tell the story. This is before I worked on this version of My Little Pony, so it's always been a thing with me. The movie, which I just rewatched, and that's kind of weird, but the movie was the only thing for about 2 years of my life that would calm me down when I was a little kid. So when I had babysitters and stuff, it was just on loop. So something must have really found its way in there. So anyway, I started working on the series because it was through my editor that I had worked with before. And, you know, same thing. They give you a trial, you figure it out, you do tons and tons of research, and then you go for it.
Let's go for green hat. Yeah, you.
With things like blue dazzleberries and funflowers, with things feel contributing to the canon of My Little Pony.
How do I feel what?
Contributing to the canon, the universe in a sense, building a question.
I think it's really fun because the books provide, like the comics, an opportunity to add in little details that might not be in it otherwise. And my phone is ringing. It's my brother. He's shining over. Say hi to my brother, everyone. Hi! Now say hi, Garrett. Hi, Garrett! I'm on a panel right now. That was the whole crap talking. Okay, I gotta go. Okay, bye. So yeah, the blue dazzleberries and the giant sunflowers. Yeah, that's just like really fun details to add because there's so many more pages to put those things on, and you can really describe everything or make random jokes. And I think it's the best part of getting to write the books, actually. And I also get to mention certain background ponies and have them say things, and you know, it's great. So.
As long as you name them correctly, according to Hasbro. Yeah. Next. Oh, little girl in ears right there. Yes.
You mean in Dare and Do? Definitely. Yeah, there are some references in there. How could it happen?
It's gotta be a witness.
Indiana Pony. Indiana Pony.
Next. Blue hair.
Aside from the characters AK, Yearling, and Dare and Do, who's your favorite out of the main six?
Well, it's Pinkie Pie, which is why I'm so excited. You have to understand something about me, though. I used to be in high school, I planned all the dances, I planned prom, everything. I can make amazing balloon arches and cakes, and I planned parties, and I definitely identify with her. But I identify with all of them, you know, in some way, like Twilight Sparkle, which obviously the book thing, and Fluttershy, I love animals, so, you know. But Pinkie Pie, I think, is like my soul pony. She's just so silly. It's the best.
Next. Any younger fans out here? That one, right there. You.
Oh, which one? Well, all of them. No, but I do think that, oh, it's so hard. I do really like the Verity and Applejack books that just came out recently. I think that they've got some really good, funny stuff, and they're a little more current, but I do recommend all of them. That is my official statement.
I think the fun you do in the Pinkie Pie book is probably the best.
Oh,
the rock.
Oh, the rock bands?
Yeah, the rock bands you do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, in some of the books, you don't know, there might be something referenced that's coming up. As in, Pinkie Pie book, I talk about Maud, but I didn't say her name, because I knew that was coming. And everyone was like, she can't just invent another sister. And I was like, yeah.
So read the book.
So.
Next.
Would you like to cuddle AK Yearling?
You have
Bring her to me.
Green shirt.
During your writing process, do you get those moments where you get stuck on phrasing, like phrasing an actual moment or an actual, not event, but something that somebody would say?
phrasing like you don't think the character would use that specific word, or?
No, like you want to describe like the event and you're stuck like, okay, how am I going to phrase it the right way? Characters are a little bit easier because you got to go with their personality, but I mean, especially with like moments or events, you're like, okay, how am I going to phrase it so that it comes out right?
Yeah, I mean, that is the tough part. Sometimes you have to go look at it several times, write one draft, and then go away from it. And if you read it out loud, too, that generally helps. I sometimes try to pretend like I'm a parent reading my child a bedtime story when I read my manuscript. And if I get stuck on a word, I know it's not the right word. Or if it's hard to say with the other words, you know, it needs to flow a certain way. And with my books, I tried in the actual text, not the dialogue, to use words that I felt were kind of like that pony. So in Rarity's book, I used a little bit longer, more, you know, fanciful words that she might think or use at some point, and long sentences that were kind of, oh, you know. And in Applejack's, they were just kind of like, you know, short. So, I mean, I guess it depends on the story that you're writing and kind of the feel you want to give it.
Next. This girl already, guy in white shirt, right there. Right, in the back. Go ahead. Yes, you can.
I know this is going to be a shock to Darth, but do you plan on what Dare do in season 5?
It's not what I plan to do. It's what everyone plans to do. I can't.
Do you want me?
I can't answer that.
I figured.
She wrote a Pinkie Pie episode.
Yeah.
May not have Darren do it.
Well,
There you go.
it could.
I ain't telling. Nice lady right there.
You mean when I started writing in my whole career? When did I start? I started, well, I've been writing forever, pretty much, since I was a kid. I started writing professionally about 2 years after I graduated college. And it was ghostwriting, small stuff. I started out just writing outlines for books, and other writers would use my outlines. And then I started writing books, and my goal was always, this is kind of funny, is I love books and I love writing books, absolutely. But I always wanted to be a television writer. I went to film school at NYU for children's television, and so I kind of made this big loop, and it's always been like Beacon, and like now getting to write for season 5 has been like a dream realized, so it's pretty great. And I will continue to write books too, and I actually just started a new pony book set. It's not going to be set, it's going to come out one at a time, but I'm writing a Celestia book right now. After that will be Princess Luna, and then Kate is going to Princess Twilight, so it's going to do the princesses, so yeah, that's what I'm working on now, and yeah.
Awesome. Next. Ash.
Are you ever restricted because like you're writing for children as far as what words you can use because it can't be like too advanced of a level?
Not really. Once in a while I'll throw something in that will get changed in editing, but I do try to throw in bigger words here and there, you'll notice, because if they're in the context and, you know, a kid is reading it, or a mother or father is reading it to their kid, and the word comes up, you know, what do you do? What does this mean? And then you talk about it. So it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, sometimes the sentences are a little shorter to be less intimidating for new readers, or a little more simplistic. But for the most part, no. I always take a shot in the dark trying to, you know, throw in some bigger words.
Nice lady. Yeah.
writer's block, and how do you deal with that?
Writer's block? Writer's block is a tough one because I think it's generally acknowledged to be just kind of not even real. Like, it's more that you're procrastinating or you are scared. And I think that in that situation, the best thing to do is either take a step back, take a walk, relax, read something you really like or watch something you really like, and then get re-inspired. And then just go for it and try and take a pen and write on paper, and that always works for me, like I said before, but I mean, it is tough. There are days when I really just don't want to write anything, or I don't feel like it, but that's not really okay. It's my job, so I have to. But, you know, if you're just doing it for fun, just try not to be afraid. Just try something, and you don't know what could happen.
There's a saying in art, especially with artists, drawers, painters, there are 10,000 bad drawings in your arm, you must get them out. It's the same way with writers, I believe. There's about 10 million bad words in you, you must get them out.
Oh yeah.
And then they start coming better. How about you?
Well, I think setting deadlines for yourself would also help too. And putting yourself under a time constraint could really boost your creativity in the most unexpected ways.
Yeah, deadlines do definitely help. Thanks.
I see a fluffy arm over there.
How does your previous experience with the past generations of My Little Pony influence your artistic way about going with Friendship is Magic?
I wouldn't say it influences it in any big way other than I have it in me that I watch so much of that. I don't really think about the characters from those generations very much, but I do know, I feel like I know the world that it is, and that helps. And I'm very much in the Friendship is Magic world now. So I think it kind of, well, I think My Little Pony helped shape me into this person that's able to write silly stuff. You know, silly, fun, pony stuff. That's probably it. But,
and before I go on, did anybody see the gecko hooves actually work? Okay, she grabbed that with her hoof. I don't know how that works. Next.
I noticed the wings are down on the ground.
Real quickly, can we get a round of applause for this runner, dude?
Yeah.
He's been like, my question was this: why Daring Do? Just like, did it just happen? Like, she was at one time, like in one episode, she was just one of many background characters. So why her? Like, in like 3 books, like not 3. So was it just like, this is a good idea? No. This is a good, they're all good ideas. I'm just gonna write all of them. How did it, like, how did it happen?
Oh. Well, I think it's kind of one of those things where they were paying attention to what people like, you know, and hey, I said that. And it seems the natural thing, actually, for the show, because Daring Do is basically the thing that got Rainbow Dash into reading. And if we're doing books that are My Little Pony books, and in the show, the books she loves to read are Daring Do, why wouldn't everybody else want to read those too, you know? And it's just cool because it's kind of this thing where it's about the ponies and it's like what the ponies would read. So it's got this other layer to it, and it's just cool.
On top of that, how many people here would actually see a spin-off series of Daring Do in it? How many would watch that? Everybody would watch that, I'm pretty sure. So,
yeah.
It's
well,
marketing 101. If your fandom wants it, do it.
Yeah.
Okay. You good? Okay. You.
Do you think there's a little window that Rainbow Dash had, worship for Daring Do. I mean, kind of Rainbow Dash is very questioned over and over and over with the help of a friend, and that she got this hero worship thing going on with Daring Do who didn't accomplish as much. I mean, isn't it kind of a little bit weird?
I'm not sure I understand the whole question. What is the question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't think you can.
No, that's okay. I'm just trying to understand the question.
Okay, you have Rainbow Dash, the element of loyalty. She says you question it over and over. And it's a little bit weird that she had a hero worship for Daring Do who admittedly has not accomplished as much as Rainbow Dash.
Okay, his question was, isn't it a little weird that Rainbow Dash has saved Equestria over and over, and she kind of has hero worship for Daring Do, who hasn't saved as much, right? I actually don't think it's that weird, because I think it kind of shows how you can look up to someone, and it's really hard to measure people's accomplishments against each other, and someone to another person, like, for me to look at, like, Megan or Lauren, I'm just like, oh wow, they've done so much, and like they have, but I also look at a lot of other people like that, and maybe they look at me like that, and I don't know. And I think that that's a great example of that, is that sometimes you don't know like how special you are, everything you've achieved, and someone's probably looking at you thinking that you're amazing. So I think it's okay.
You.
You're fine. I'm sorry, just a question. I've been learning to ask someone for a bit now. Well, does Princess Celestia and Princess Luna know about the whole universe, if you will, of Daring Do? Do they know?
They know everything. I'm pretty sure they know.
Why have they never brought attention to it or got Daring Do some assistance or some extra?
Daring Do works alone.
Yeah, she works alone. That's some of those great mysteries. Maybe they have a deal with each other where she stays out of Daring Do's business, and Daring Do takes care of one part of Equestria, and or certain beasts and relics and stuff, and then Celestia's like, okay.
Do they have spells I'm sorry. Do they have spells that could stop the critters that try to get Daring Do, and what assurance do they have that Elizondo, I think his name is, won't just kill Daring Do outright instead of trap her in overly complicated ways?
These are all very good questions, but I'm not sure.
But it's the same kind of question that has to do why the Canalap pony can't recognize the 6 ponies that have saved their butts over and over and over. I think it's the same question.
Well, if we're going to talk about the Daring Do and Indiana Jones analogy, if you look at Raiders of the Lost Ark, the government goes to Indiana Jones to go to Egypt to stop the Nazis. They don't send a whole army with him, they send him alone. So that's probably a good comparison of why they think.
Yeah, probably because the government doesn't want to get involved. Elizondo's down in the South Hampton somewhere, down in South Equestria, and Celestia can't go down there because she has a treaty with the zebras. She can't go down there. Daring Do in as undercover, right? A little bit of the royal treasury to go get this little,
Yeah.
All right, let's get somebody else. Who else has their answer? How about you?
Sorry, just a comment on that last one. At some point, Khan name gets involved from MI6 or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, the subject was brought up earlier of working under deadlines. I wanted to know that the only experience I've had with this is like college. So do you have any deadlines set on you by Hasbro where you get to like night before up all night on monsters writing these things, or do you know how to spread these things out and have multiple levels of proof reading?
I'm not proud to admit, but it's happened a few times. But you know what's funny about when that does happen? And it's that sometimes the best stuff I write is under those, you know, nights of pure pressure. So it's tough, because it's, you know, if I didn't come up with such good stuff, maybe I would never do it again. But I don't know, it's different every time. Sometimes I have a lot more going on in my life, or I'm going somewhere and then I get kind of behind on the schedule that I want to keep, and then I end up all night. But back when I was working in production, for a long time I wrote ghostwrote books, and I worked in TV production, which is very, very long hours. It's about 14 hours a day, and I often had to be at work at 5 or 6 a.m. And my work was an hour away, so I was not sleeping very much because I was working all day, and then I'd come home at night and I'd write all night. And there was one time when I had about 3 deadlines that all lined up together, and it was also what we call a tandem in live production, where we shoot 2 episodes of a show at once. So I was doing a tandem, and I was writing 3 books, and I stayed up for 4 days in a row, and I started to hallucinate, and I do not recommend that. And ever since then, I was like, never again, so I don't do that anymore.
How about the gentleman in the black hat over here?
Have you ever been writing a scene and you put so much detail you feel like you're overthinking it completely? How do you overcome something like that?
Well, I think there's like a rule in fashion, to quote, you know, McCarthy or something, where you're supposed to, when you put on accessories, you're supposed to take off like 30% of what you put on, like if you over-accessorize. So it's kind of the same thing. So you know you're always going to shave off like 30% or something like that. And just know that if you want to lay it on thick, you're going to have to cut it down. And then it becomes so much cleaner and like tighter. It reads better. But editors help you with that if you have a professional editor and you're working professionally. But if you don't, I mean, you could even have a friend read it and see if, have them be honest, if it's too flowery, you know? A big mistake that new writers make is putting in too much descriptive language. But if you hold yourself to that, take them out.
Yes, there should be 3 paragraphs to describe that you can't spoke. Next. See somebody you haven't talked to yet. How about the gentleman with the glasses over there?
I was wondering, how did Darren Duke's character get developed, and who created or how did the concept come about for that character?
No, I actually don't know the answer to that question because I did not create her. I believe she was created by Cindy Marlowe, who I think originally her name was Razor Blue, and I think they just wanted something like a cool action pony, and it was really she was a vehicle for getting Rainbow Dash into reading. So that episode, if you watch it again, it isn't entirely about Daring Do. It's more about Rainbow Dash being bored and kind of having to get over the fact that she thinks reading is for eggheads. So she kind of has to swallow her pride a little bit there, and I think that's why they came up with Daring Do. They thought it would be like a really funny sort of Indiana Jones shout out, and kind of just has gotten bigger and bigger from there. So.
Nick. Oh, yeah.
I got my prizes, I guess.
Yeah, I know. How about you? Yes, you.
Have you read the comics? And if so, would you consider collaborating with them on work someday?
I've actually read every single comic. There's a little sleeve. And maybe someday I'll sell my whole collection. But yeah, I would definitely collaborate with those guys. I think they're really funny. I mean, I do think that what they do and what I do is slightly different. Their medium allows them to do a little bit different type of stories, and mine are a little more just like the show, without the glory. So, yeah, I would.
Speaking of IDW, would you ever consider writing for the comic?
Yeah, I would love to. Absolutely, I love comics. I do.
You. Yeah, you. Yeah, you.
Yeah,
I'm doing this. Blue shirt, right down along here. That guy is going.
Do you read any fan fiction? And if so, what do you think of that?
No, I don't read fan fiction. It's the same answer that I'm sure you've heard other show people say, is that it just wouldn't be right for me to read it because I don't want to steal someone's idea. And if there is an idea that's similar to someone else had, it's because it was a coincidence or maybe it was just a great idea, you know? I just can't do it. I don't want that in my brain. But I really do think it is cool that everyone writes fan fiction. And I think it's amazing because everyone should write and read.
Gentleman in the Batman shirt right there with his hand up.
Hi, first of all, Dusty, I'm a fan of your show, and I have a question for Mr. Berrow. Two questions. One, when you were writing the chronology of Yearling, did you ever give her an origin of some kind? And as far as cadence is concerned, did you ever, were there any rejected ideas regarding how she got her abilities or exactly what an alicorn is?
So the first question was about Daring Do's origins.
Did you come up with the origin of Daring Do?
I can't really talk about that because I don't want to ruin anything, and yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Stay tuned till the book.
And then with the cadence question, you said, were we talking about rejected ideas about how alicorns are made? I also can't tell you that. Yeah, there were a lot of ideas that happened, but I mean, the thing with telling rejected ideas is that you never want to do it because sometimes they can be used later for other things. And just because they were rejected ideas doesn't mean it wasn't a good idea, it just didn't fit.
Yeah.
So I'm always hesitant to give up outtakes because I want to use them.
Okay, we're up against it, so we got one last question. Get your hands up and see who got it. Let's see, somebody haven't seen before. You. Yeah, you.
As you're writing it, is the Daring Do series set in the real world of Equestria? And if so, is it on the same continent?
On the same continent? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like the official map is Equestria.
Well, it's sort of in the real world of Equestria, but sort of not. Because, you know, Daring Do and AK Yearling, it's all kind of mixed in together. So there are going to be some new places that you see, but as to where they fit on the map, I can't really say. So. You'll have to wait and see. It's going to be great.
Yeah. So, I want to thank you all for coming to meet this lovely woman, Berrow. For bringing all the books.
I have some questions for you.
Come on, dude. So,
okay. This question is for this lovely drawing Tony sent. Ooh, it comes with a cutie pie and a flirt die, and some markers and stickers and things. Okay. Let's see. In which book does Derby deliver mail?
Okay, yeah, no problem. There was
That is correct.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. I'm gonna give it a second because wait until everyone clears up. Yeah, because
For this lovely bag.
if you want to grab it, see. Grab it. Sure.
What was the name of the evil enchantress that Cadence defeated with her love?
You were first.
It's close enough. It's Prismia. That's good.
I ask myself a lot of questions. And
the bag there.
I'm just like, nah. That was one of the nods.
Who was the band that headlined with the road and Pony Blues a bunch? Yep, Coldplay. Alright, now I got a couple books here. I know it's kind of weird because if you haven't read the books, you might know all the books, but I'll try to ask a question from a different book than this.
No problem.
What is the event that Rarity and Charity are making dresses for in book 4?
I haven't the foggiest idea. I met the guy yesterday.
This is for A.
I'm pretty sure.
Does anyone know? No. He knows it. He knows it. Yeah, it's a choir concert. The Sweet Sounds of Summer concert, where they sing about crazy strings. Anyway. Couple more. Should I do the books still? I have one more. Okay. Who wins the apple pie eating contest and apple dress book?
You. No.
Great, you go on. Which one do you want? Sure. Okay. This is for. Oh, okay. No pressure, go for it. Here we go. This is a big prize. Can anyone name all of the staff who have had shout-outs in the books? It's a really tough one.
No.
All right, I'll ask a different question. That was too hard. No, sorry. I did phrase it that way, but I'm taking it back now. That's not worth the next for. Okay. What does Rainbow Dash start calling herself after she starts doing the dares? You already won.
You already won. You.
Daring Dash.
With that, we got to get out of the next panel. Thank you all for coming.